governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria has defended the Apex Bank exchange rate system, insisting it was adopted to address problems that are specific to Nigeria and as such require a Nigeria-specific solution. Sidestepping a question over his future, Godwin Emefiele says he's focused on his job and remains committed to supporting the fiscal authorities in ensuring that the country reaches and surpasses the 3.4% gross domestic product for 2022 that had been predicted for Nigeria by the International Monetary Fund. Together with Nigerian Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, Zainab Ahmed, the pair said patience is needed for Nigeria to take advantage of the opportunities in current world order has revealed, but the looming threat of debt still and the prospect of a U.S. rate hike has been met with mixed reactions. From the scene of the International Monetary Fund spring meetings, Arise International correspondent Adefemi Akinsoya reports.
As the International Monetary Fund and World Bank Group spring meetings continue, the topic of unfinished business is high on the agenda for Nigeria's high-level leaders present at the meetings. Earlier this week, the World Bank Group President, David Malpass, had urged Nigeria to end its multiple exchange rate system and instead focus on a single market-based exchange rate. In response, the governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria insists a one-size-fits-all solution is not in line with the current situation in Nigeria.
Let me say that Nigeria is on a managed float. What that also means is that we cannot adopt what is being proposed, that we go on a free float of day currency. Doing that will create an exchange rate spiral for Nigeria as long as the demand surpasses the supply of foreign exchange in Nigeria. We have been at this since 1986, and that's why we're saying that whereas we are also doing something to adjust the currency, like for instance between 2015 and now, you would observe that we have adjusted the currency from about 155 to about 410, 420 that it is today. So we cannot be accused of not adjusting the currency. But that we are trying to adopt a very gradual approach towards adjusting the price to the level that it is today. But at the same time, we have to be given the chance to also look at why you are adjusting price. You must also do something about demand and supply. And that is the reason we're saying that we need to do something on demand to make sure that those things that we can produce in the country will restrict access to foreign exchange for them, so that will encourage people to produce locally.
We have not opted out of the global tax deal.
The World Bank this week also called again on Nigeria to rethink its position on fuel subsidies. Nigerian Finance Minister Zainab Ahmed showed a level of optimism for the future of Nigeria in this regard.
We now have the opportunity to manufacture as well as export petrochemical products, not only to be used domestically but export within the region. And it's very good that we have already made a lot of progress in food production, in production of fertilizer and urea. As we speak today, we have exports of urea and fertilizer from the Dangote refinery as well as from Indorama. We have had to take more debts than we had planned to during the COVID, and it is good that we're able to do that because we're able to now stabilize the economy and mitigate the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic and the crash in the crude oil price in the Nigerian economy. We have debt levels that are very much within manageable limits. What we have is a revenue problem, and the Ministry of Finance and other related ministries are working very hard to continuously increase our revenue.
U.S. Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell signaled a half-point rate hike is in the cards soon to combat inflation at the IMF, a move that's not welcomed by developing countries trying to tackle their own debt profiles.
One of the things you said to us at the beginning of the pandemic was that you needed us to spend the money but keep the receipts. And we did, in fact, keep the receipts. So it should be easy to identify COVID-specific debt. It should even be easy to identify climate-related debt. But what we need to do, because of our highly indebted situation already, is to put this on another international balance sheet. You can perhaps have a pandemic trust and you can have a climate adaptation trust. But the reality is that what we need is to be able to move it off of our balance sheet.
Friday's meetings are also macroeconomic in nature. Conversations are also going to include those on inflation and the role it plays in an increasingly fragile global economy. And then, once again, there will be conversations on subsidies and how they can both be a blessing and a curse to international trade and development. Adefemi Akinsanya, Arise News, Washington, D.C.
We're now being joined live from Washington, D.C. by Arise international correspondent Adefemi Akinsanya. Good morning, Femi.
Lyndon, good to hear from you.
Same here.
Well, Adefemi, apart from the response by the central bank governor and the Minister of Finance of Nigeria to statements made by David Malpass, the head of the World Bank, what are the other new developments coming out of the spring meeting of the IMF and World Bank, particularly with regard to the security of the world in the face of these challenges that we face? There's been some talk about food crisis and a lot of talk also about Ukraine. Zelensky, of Ukraine, having joined a virtual meeting conference of the IMF World Bank yesterday.
Absolutely. Well, Thursday's meetings definitely had a special focus on Ukraine throughout. There was a special high-level meeting between representatives from Ukraine and, of course, members of the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank, which gave Ukraine a unique opportunity to voice specifically what it is they need financially in order for them to protect their economy, because obviously they are still very much in the throes of this invasion by Russia in their country. So definitely having President Volodymyr Zelensky appear virtually and also reiterate the claims that he has made that haven't really strayed too far away from any other public statement he's made thus far, reiterated the need for the international community to put its money where its mouth is when it pertains to helping Ukraine in this conflict. Because when we look at the outlook for growth, it's obviously for Ukraine increasingly negative. So that was one thing that came out of the meetings on Thursday. Here we are on Friday, approaching the tail end of the meetings. And one thing that's definitely hotly anticipated is a high-level meeting, which includes, of course, the leader of the International Monetary Fund, Kristalina Georgieva, the World Bank president, but also Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala. They'll be coming together to discuss the prospects for international trade and development through the prism of subsidies. And from what we've heard from the World Bank so far, in general speaking terms, they're not too much of a fan of them. And even when I spoke to the central bank governor for his response to this, I know you've spoken at length with Rosa just before coming to me about the matter, the central bank governor did say that he does agree that when it comes to subsidies, he agrees that they aren't always the best tool. However, for the situation that befalls Nigeria, though he didn't go into too much detail about it specifically, he said that for the time being, it was going to have to be an issue where people had to be patient and wait it out as it pertains to subsidies. So it'll be interesting to see with this special meeting whether or not Nigeria will be mentioned and how that will affect the scope of that meeting. Because if for the past couple of days, the World Bank has been talking about how subsidies are not a good thing, the fact that an entire conversation is going to be held on that, a meeting on that, through the prism of international trade and development, it will be interesting to see, obviously, the positive sides of subsidies, because they do exist.
All right. Okay. Yeah, Femi, thank you so much. Femi, what's the body reaction? I mean, what's the internal reaction? You're right there in Washington. As regards the back and forth between what the World Bank president said and the reactions, that came from the Nigerian contingent there. I'm talking about the CBN governor and the likes. What were those things that happened that mouth couldn't say?
Here's the thing. Their responses were defensive in nature, but still quite soft. they weren't harsh or aggressive. And I think when we were anticipating the comment from the central bank governor and the finance minister, we were anticipating quite harsh words because for many people, these criticisms, if you want to call them that, from the World Bank have been echoing what many have said within Nigeria in terms of how they believe monetary and fiscal policies should be working in order to benefit Nigeria's economic outlook. And that obviously isn't going to be mirrored between what we've heard from the World Bank and the responses there, and the responses to that from those two bodies. I mean, when they spoke to us, they did speak at length in terms of giving examples of why they think that the situation in Nigeria isn't as doom and gloomy as many would have it. And a lot of their hopes and optimism relies on the Dangote refineries. And while of course, these are positive things, they obviously don't address the immediate concerns that many people will have. And so I think looking back at those comments, the meetings thereafter, and what we're expected to hear today, there is a bit of a lapse in between what many people in Nigeria can expect in terms of how the economy is going to be mismanaged. The good thing about it from the outset was that Nigeria is posting positive growth, and the priority for the central bank governor, as he put it, is to capitalize off of those expectations and continue moving in that direction. But there does seem to be a bit of a disconnect. If the World Bank, which everybody has agreed, and the IMF have agreed that they are the institutions that know what they're talking about when it comes to trade and development, and they've made quite stark comments about Nigeria, and in response there isn't really a reaction along the lines of, we've heard what you're going to say, yes, we have approved this huge budget to finance our subsidies, we are going to do such and such. To hear that we'd have to just wait it out and see what the market will look like and be a bit patient is expected, but I imagine that perhaps to some people it could be a little bit disappointing. But as ever, we're going to keep our ears to the ground for Friday's meetings, which is of course happening today, and they will whittle down over the weekend with a far smaller presence of meetings on Saturday and then definitely on Sunday. But today will be the last day of real meaty conversation, so hopefully there'll be a bit more information and a bit more clarity, as you put it, into what Nigerians specifically can expect from the ministries of finance, but of course the Apex Bank, because of course the two institutions have a huge effect on the livelihood of this economy.
They certainly do. I'm looking at today's schedule of events, and it says there's a seminar on inflation dynamics in a fragile global economy. So we look forward to what central bankers all over the world, especially ours, have to say about that. Thank you so much, Adefemi.